All right, so you want to speak fluent English?
Who doesn't? Right.
We've got articles,
Yeah.
research. Actually, we've got something even better.
Oh, okay.
We dug into a popular English learning podcast, Easy English Talk,
Oh, nice.
and pulled out the juiciest bits for you.
What struck me about this podcast is it goes beyond just grammar and vocabulary lists. They really delve into the psychology of learning, the latest tech,
Right?
and they even weave in a really motivating message for anyone who's felt stuck.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I was surprised by how much they pack into each episode.
Yeah.
Jason and Julia, the hosts, they kick things off by talking about why fluency in English is such a game changer.
Right.
Especially as we head into 2025.
Yeah.
They made the point that English isn't just a language anymore.
Right.
It's like a global passport.
Yeah, it's a really important point. When you consider how much of the world's business, science, even pop culture happens in English,
That's true.
being fluent really does open doors that might otherwise stay closed.
And they don't just talk about it abstractly.
Right.
They give, like, really concrete examples.
Oh, perfect.
Like, they talked about a listener who landed their dream job
Wow.
at an international tech company because of their English skills.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it wasn't just about understanding technical jargon.
Right.
It was about being able to confidently share their ideas and collaborate with a global team.
That's a perfect illustration of how English acts as that bridge between cultures.
Exactly.
They also talked about how fluency can transform travel experiences.
Oh, for sure.
One listener wrote in about how they were finally able to have a genuine conversation with a local artisan in Morocco because of their improved English.
Awesome.
It went beyond just buying a souvenir.
Right.
They were able to connect on a personal level and learn about each other's lives.
See, that's what I love about language learning. It's not just about the practical stuff.
Yeah.
It's about human connection. And of course, they talked about how being fluent in English unlocks a world of entertainment.
Of course.
Movies, music, books, podcasts like this one we're doing right now.
Exactly.
They even talked about how someone was able to help their child with their English homework.
Oh, wow.
Because they become so fluent.
Nice.
It's those everyday wins that really highlight the impact.
For sure.
But of course, no language journey is without its bumps in the road.
Right.
Jason and Julia spent some time talking about the common barriers learners face.
Yeah.
And they were so relatable.
I bet.
They talked about that universal fear of making mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
The one that makes you want to clam up and avoid speaking altogether. I know that feeling all too well.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when I was first learning Spanish, I was so petrified of mispronouncing a word or messing up the grammar that I barely spoke at all for the first few months.
It's so common, but
yeah.
Jason and Julia pointed out something really interesting.
Okay. They said, if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. Mistakes are actually a sign that you're challenging yourself and stepping outside of your comfort zone.
It's like when you're learning to ride a bike, you're going to fall a few times.
Exactly.
Before you find your balance.
Yep.
But the more you practice, the more confident you become.
Totally.
Another big hurdle they talked about is consistency.
Oh, yeah.
Life gets in the way.
Right.
And it's tough to carve out time for language practice.
And they acknowledge that finding that time is a challenge. But they offered a really practical tip.
Okay.
Aim for just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes.
They emphasized that even short bursts of focused practice can make a huge difference over time.
Okay.
It's about forming the habit.
Yeah.
Not about spending hours cramming.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to feel like studying.
Right.
They suggested things like listening to a short English podcast.
While you're getting ready in the morning or reviewing flashcards during your lunch break.
Those little pockets of time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about finding those little pockets of time and using them strategically.
I like that.
They also address something that I think a lot of us struggle with.
Okay.
Comparing ourselves to other learners and feeling inadequate.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so easy to scroll through social media and see these polyglots who seem to speak a dozen languages flawlessly. It can be incredibly discouraging. But Jason and Julia reminded listeners that everyone learns at their own pace.
Right.
It's not a competition.
Yeah.
It's about focusing on your own progress and celebrating your own milestones.
They actually shared a story about a listener
Okay.
who'd been studying English for years but still felt like they were lagging behind their peers.
Oh, wow.
This listener was about to give up, but they decided to try one more thing.
Okay.
They started focusing on their own progress.
Yeah.
Okay. No matter how small.
Yeah.
And stopped comparing themselves to others.
And what happened?
Their confidence soared.
Awesome.
They finally started to enjoy the process instead of feeling overwhelmed by it.
Right.
And because they were more relaxed and having fun, they actually started to make faster progress.
It's like that old saying, comparison is the thief of joy.
It really is.
And that story perfectly segues into their discussion of practical strategies and solutions for overcoming these barriers.
Okay.
Which we'll get into after a short break. So we've covered the why of English fluency and the common roadblocks.
Right.
But what about the solutions?
Okay.
Jason and Julia offer a toolkit of strategies. Some traditional, some surprisingly innovative.
Okay. I am intrigued. I'm always on the lookout for new language learning hacks.
Yeah.
What stood out to you?
Well, they reinforce the power of immersion, which we've talked about before, but they take it a step further. They suggest creating an English bubble in your own home. This doesn't mean you have to start speaking Shakespearean English to your family.
Right.
It's about consciously surrounding yourself with the language, even in small ways.
Like what kinds of things?
They suggested switching your phone and social media settings to English, watching movies and TV shows in English with subtitles, listening to English music and podcasts, even labeling household items with their English names.
Oh, wow.
Sounds a little quirky.
Yeah.
But the idea is to make English a natural part of your daily environment.
I love that. It's about making those micro shifts in your routine that add up over time.
Exactly.
They also talked about the importance of actually using the language.
Yes.
Not just passively absorbing it.
Right.
It's not enough to just watch a movie in English. They encouraged listeners to actively engage with the language.
Exactly. They suggested techniques like shadowing, where you listen to a recording and try to mimic the speaker's pronunciation and intonation.
Wow.
They also talked about the value of simply describing your daily activities in English, even if you're just talking to yourself.
Oh, okay.
It might feel a little strange at first.
Yeah.
But it helps you get comfortable with thinking and speaking in English.
You know, I've actually tried that myself.
Oh, yeah.
I used to narrate my cooking in Spanish.
Nice.
And it did help me get more comfortable with using the language in a natural way.
Totally. But of course, we can't ignore the elephant in the room.
Right.
Or rather, the supercomputer in our pockets.
Wow.
They dedicated a whole segment to how technology is changing the game for language learners, especially in 2025.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's not just about having a dictionary app on your phone.
Right.
We're talking about a whole new level of personalized learning powered by AI.
Exactly. They specifically mentioned ChatGPT.
Oh, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Like the one that can write poems in code.
That's the one. They explained how it can be used to create customized lessons.
Okay.
Provide instant feedback on pronunciation and grammar.
Wow.
And even simulate conversations with native speakers. It's like having a personal tutor available 24/7 right in your pocket.
That's incredible. I can see how that kind of personalized feedback could be a game changer for learners who struggle with certain aspects of the language, like pronunciation or grammar.
And they talked about how these AI-powered apps are getting really good at tailoring lessons to your individual needs and learning style.
Right.
They can even adapt to your progress in real time.
Oh, wow.
Which means you're always being challenged at the right level.
That's amazing. And then there's virtual reality.
Yeah.
Which sounds absolutely mind-blowing for language learning.
It really does take immersion to another level.
Yeah.
They described how VR programs can transport you to realistic scenarios.
Oh, nice.
Like a bustling market in Beijing or a cozy cafe in Paris.
Imagine being able to practice ordering food, asking for directions, or even having a full-blown conversation with a virtual native speaker.
Exactly.
All within a virtual environment that feels incredibly real.
It's like a language learning video game, but with even more realistic graphics and immersive experiences.
And speaking of games, they also talked about how gamification is becoming more sophisticated and engaging. Apps like Duolingo and Memrise have been using game-like elements for a while now. But they're getting even better at tapping into our natural desire for competition and achievement.
Totally. They gave the example of a new app that uses a storyline format.
Oh, cool.
You're basically a character in an interactive story.
Okay.
And you have to use your English skills to navigate different challenges and complete missions.
It sounds so much more engaging than just rote memorization or grammar drills.
It is. And it taps into that sense of fun and playfulness that can make learning feel less like a chore.
Right.
And more like an adventure.
I like that. It's about finding those ways to make learning sustainable.
Yes.
Something that you actually look forward to doing instead of dreading.
They also highlighted the growing popularity of online language exchange platforms.
Oh, like italki and HelloTalk?
Yes.
I've heard of those. They connect learners from all over the world so they can practice speaking with each other.
Yeah.
It's a great way to get real-world conversation practice and learn about different cultures at the same time.
Exactly. It's about building connections and friendships while you're learning, which can be incredibly motivating.
Yeah.
They also touched on the trend of micro-learning, which is all about breaking down learning into bite-sized chunks.
I think this is key for busy people.
Right.
Instead of feeling like you need to carve out hours for study, you can focus on mastering a single concept, phrase, or grammar rule in just a few minutes.
Right. It's about fitting learning into the nooks and crannies of your day. Right. They suggested using those spare minutes, waiting in line, commuting, or even just brushing your teeth to squeeze in a quick language lesson.
I love that. And speaking of fitting things in,
Yeah.
how do they address the motivation piece?
Yeah.
Because, let's face it, staying motivated is half the battle.
It is.
When it comes to language learning.
That's where they get really insightful.
Okay.
They go beyond the usual set goals and reward yourself advice.
Right.
They delve into the deeper psychological aspects of motivation.
Okay, let's hear it. What's their secret sauce?
They emphasize the importance of connecting with your why. Why are you learning English?
Right.
Is it to advance your career, travel the world, connect with loved ones, or simply for personal enrichment?
It's so easy to lose sight of that initial spark when you're bogged down in grammar rules and verb conjugations.
It is.
But they made a great point. Regularly reminding yourself of that deeper motivation can help you push through those challenging moments.
Absolutely. They also talked about the power of celebrating those small wins along the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to get fixated on the end goal, fluency, that we forget to acknowledge all the progress we make each day.
It's like we're so focused on climbing the mountain that we forget to enjoy the view along the way.
Exactly. Yeah. Every new word you learn, every time you understand a bit more of a movie, every successful conversation you have.
Yeah.
Those are all victories worth celebrating.
I think that's something I need to work on. I tend to be very goal-oriented, and I can get so caught up in reaching the next milestone that I forget to appreciate how far I've already come.
They also had some interesting advice on dealing with the inevitable setbacks and plateaus that we all experience when learning a language.
Oh, those plateaus.
Yeah.
It's like you're cruising along, making great progress, and then suddenly you hit a wall.
Right.
It can be so demoralizing.
They suggested reframing those moments as opportunities for growth.
Right.
Instead of seeing a plateau as a sign of failure, see it as a chance to consolidate your learning.
Okay.
To go back and review what you've already learned.
Right.
And to identify any areas where you might need extra practice.
That's a really helpful perspective shift.
Yeah.
Instead of getting discouraged, you can use those moments to refine your approach.
Right. They also reminded listeners that fluency isn't about perfection. It's about effective communication.
Right.
It's about being able to express yourself, understand others, and connect with people, even if you make a few mistakes along the way.
And they had a really interesting point about mistakes.
Oh, what's that?
They said, don't just make mistakes, mind them.
Mind them.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's about seeing mistakes not as failures, but as valuable feedback.
Right.
Each mistake is an opportunity to learn and improve.
Exactly.
So instead of getting embarrassed or frustrated when you make a mistake, try to analyze it.
Yeah.
Figure out why you made the mistake.
Right.
And how you can avoid making it again in the future.
They even suggested keeping a mistake journal.
A mistake journal.
Where you can write down your mistakes, the corrections, and any insights you gained from the experience.
I love that it turns mistakes from something to be ashamed of into something valuable.
And finally, they emphasize the importance of finding ways to make learning fun and enjoyable.
Yes.
They suggested experimenting with different learning methods and finding what works best for you.
Like what?
If you're a visual learner, try using flashcards or watching movies.
Right.
If you're an auditory learner, Listen to podcasts or music.
Okay.
If you're a kinesthetic learner, find ways to incorporate movement into your learning.
Movements.
Like acting out dialogues or using gestures.
Oh, interesting.
And don't forget about the social aspect of learning, connecting with other learners. Either online or in person can provide motivation, support, and a sense of community.
That's such an important point. Language learning doesn't have to be a solitary pursuit.
Right.
Sharing the journey with others can make it so much more enjoyable and rewarding.
So, as you can see, Jason and Julia offer a wealth of practical advice and insightful perspectives on how to achieve fluency in English.
I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of this podcast. There's so much valuable information packed into each episode.
I agree. But if I had to distill their message down to one key takeaway, it would be this. Fluency is within reach for anyone who is willing to put in the effort.
Right.
To embrace the journey and to never stop learning and growing.
And in 2025, with all the incredible tools and resources available, that journey has never been more exciting or accessible.
It hasn't.
So if you're ready to embark on your own English fluency adventure, we highly recommend checking out Easy English Talk.
It's a good one.
It's full of inspiration, practical advice, and a healthy dose of humor to keep you motivated along the way.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive and happy learning.